Welcome everybody for our last Boost webinar series. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly, and I just have a few things to go through really quickly. So this session today is moving customers up your engagement ladder, and our webinar host today is Anna, and she's from Over the Moon Farm and Flowers from Coggan, Iowa. So I'll pass the baton to her soon, but I just wanted to go through one really quick thing. I wanted to remind folks that if you have any questions about the webinar today or anything you may have learned in the Boost webinar series, feel free to reach out to any of our Boost coaches on the screen. And I also wanted to thank our sponsorship partners. Without them and their support, we wouldn't be able to put on this series. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and pass it along to Anna for her to talk about our topic today.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. I'm going to switch now to sharing my screen. I will get the PowerPoint up. And are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay, so today's topic is moving customers up your engagement ladder. So first I wanted to start with just the very basics of what is an engagement ladder and what am I talking about when I refer to that, so that we're all on the same page. So when I'm referring to an engagement ladder, I mean, what is it to have customers that are maybe viewing your website, viewing your social media, liking a Facebook post, and how do you move them towards being the customers that purchase, say, if you're a CSA farmer, they purchase your summer CSA. And how do you move them to be people that not only purchase your summer CSA, but they also send your CSA sign up to all their neighbors. So how do you move people from someone that's liking one post once in a while to someone that is actively supporting your business and is actively part of what I would consider your immediate farming community? So this is just a little bit of a visual to describe that. So we have the social media followers all the way up to committed customer. And obviously there can be a lot of overlap in these things, but generally we're referring to kind of the masses that even if you don't have thousands and thousands of social media followers, maybe you do have more followers than you have those committed customers. I think that's typical, but obviously not always the case. So what I'm going to really focus on today is these three steps. Obviously, I think in different circumstances and different business models, there can be a whole lot of other steps on the engagement ladder. But since Boost is digital marketing focused, I'm going to focus on the aspects of that I think apply. So the social media, newsletter subscriber, and then moving that person to being a committed customer. So I wanted to first talk about why you want people to join your email list and why that's kind of that key middle rung on your ladder. So your email list is your personal connection to people. It's your way to make direct asks. It's your way to share your new products with people. And it's your way for people to feel included in your farm community. On your email list, that's your territory. I think it's really good to think about the ways that social media is not ours and is a great way to share. But if the algorithm changes or social media changes, or there's a new social media website that begins, I'll use my own example. My 1,800 followers or whatever on Instagram could totally become irrelevant. And so what I really want is to move as many of those 1,800 people to my email list as I can. Because on my email list, I know that although I guess it's totally possible that email will go away, it doesn't seem like that shift is going to happen as quickly or maybe ever, in the same way that the shift of social media can and does happen. So I want to move those followers to my email list so that I can communicate directly with them no matter what the algorithm says. So that's why that email list is so critical. So I think you can type in the chat box, or you can just think to yourself, what are some of your goals when you think about your engagement ladder? People might be in different positions. Maybe your business is already quite established and you have a lot of people that are on your email list, but you're looking to move them up that other tier, which is having more committed customers. Or maybe you feel like you have really committed customers that buy from you every time when you send a newsletter, or you send something exciting on your email list, and you want to move those people up farther and you want them to become promoters. So you want them to be forwarding that email and inviting their friends to join, et cetera, et cetera. Or maybe you might be in a position that I find myself more in, which is being a fairly new business, where I'm still really focused on bringing people up that first tier. I want them to go from being a Facebook-like person to being someone that subscribes to my newsletter, and I want them to open it every week. So I think these goals are something you can write down on a piece of paper, or just think to yourself for a second what that looks like. And so I also wanted to just, I've said this a little bit, but I do like a visual, comparing that email list to our social media. And I'll continue to use my own experience as an example, but on social media, you don't know necessarily if every new follower is someone that even has the capacity or is in your geographic region to purchase from you. And obviously that can be true of an email list as well. But people have to make the intentional decision to subscribe and to open that email. So I think it is more typical that that person is at least in your realm of people that can purchase from you. But social media, you can and probably do have followers that are based outside of the US or on a different coast. And if you are someone that's doing a vegetable CSA, or myself with my cut flowers, like you are not selling to someone in Alaska, perhaps. So that's not necessarily indicative of your reach for customers. And also social media, it's a marketing strategy, but it's not a sales strategy. It's really hard to get people, obviously people do, and I try, and lots of people try. It's really hard to get people to purchase directly based on a social media post because of the way the algorithm works or doesn't work, and because of who sees it and who doesn't, and who's actually geographically relevant, and who is just like your other farmer friends who like all your posts, and so it shows up for them but maybe doesn't show up for someone that lives locally to you and might actually purchase from you, but they're maybe not someone that comments and likes all your pictures, so they don't see it. So it's a marketing strategy, not necessarily how you're going to get sales. So moving up to that next rung, that email list, it allows you to let people opt in or opt out. Email lists always have a way to unsubscribe, and that's totally okay, and it's totally necessary. But it gives you the ability to reach that more specific group of people. And it gives people the opportunity to feel like they're in that inner circle. And that's, I think, that inner circle can be lots of different sizes. I know there's obviously companies and farms and whatnot that have email lists that are substantial, and they have thousands of people. So having this kind of exclusive list, you don't need to think of it as being just 10 people or 20 people, can really be tailored to your situation. So I was going to go through some tips about how to move people up that engagement ladder. My first tip is that it's okay to don't be afraid to ask people to move up the ladder. I think this is really, really basic, and it's something that it's easy to forget to do. because we have all these other strategies like creating a PDF for people to download, or after they join your email list, they get a PDF and whatnot. And those all take time and energy, and they're well worth it. But maybe before that, I would say tip number one is to ask people to join your email list, because they might not even know that it's a possibility. And to ask many times. So an example of this could be if you have on your Facebook page, perhaps, if you get a lot of people liking your posts, or it's something you're actively engaged with, when you have a post that gets a lot of engagement, make a comment on that post and say, thank you so much for liking this post and being excited about it. We would love to have you join our email list, and then have a link, or let people say, if you'd like to get added to our email list to see more content like this, send us a message. So don't be afraid to ask people to do that. I try to post it on my own Instagram stories or Facebook about once a week. And just that reminder that something else exists often is exciting to people. So my other example of that is that it's okay to give people an incentive too. So don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to make it worth it for people. It's okay only if it fits into your sales plan and your financial ability, but to give a small discount if you join, just for your first purchase, or to do something like send people your top 5 favorite recipes when they join your email list. These are things that can feel really cumbersome and hard at first, speaking from my own experience, but I do believe that once you have a system in place, you can streamline it a little bit. So I mentioned this before, but my second tip is to remember that email is not outdated. I think it's really easy to feel, especially as farmers that have limited capacity, that we have to focus all of our energy on keeping up with social media and keeping up with the images we're posting, and that email is for, a past generation. But from everything that I have read about and heard and experienced, email marketing is absolutely critical for any business these days, because social media is not ours, and because we need that direct way to continue communicating with people. So my third tip that I wanted to share is that consistency is key and perfection is not. So with an email list, or even just thinking generally about moving people up your engagement ladder, it's not going to be straight line up. People are not going to, you're not going to get probably ever just like 100 or 10 even people that like your Facebook page, and then they join your email list the next day, and then the next day they purchase a product, then they join your CSA, then they send it to your neighbors, and that person went right up the engagement ladder, and all your marketing energy felt worth it. That's fairly unlikely. Maybe it will happen with one or a few people that are at your ideal audience, but generally, you're probably going to have people that like your Facebook and they think you're great, and they join your email list and they get a few emails and they unsubscribe because they realize they probably won't purchase from you, or they are outside of your delivery radius, or they found another option for sourcing something and joined another CSA. And then you might have 2 more people join your email list and they stay, and one becomes a customer and the other never opens your email. And so I think it's really important to remember that the engagement ladder, it's a lot of up and down as well. And so it's okay to have that, and that you don't need to have the perfect strategy. I certainly don't. And I would say most people probably don't.
Hi.
Hello, my computer just froze.
I think Zoom is having some issues today.
Yes, but I will keep talking as I get the PowerPoint to come back up. Let's see. Gosh, so sorry. Of course, in our last webinar, technical problems are abounding. Okay, so the next tip as I go back to sharing my screen that I wanted to share about was not being afraid to experiment when figuring out how to move people up your engagement ladder. Oops, am I muted? Was I?
Nope, I can hear you.
Okay.
Oh no, now you're muted. There you go.
So the next tip that I wanted to share about was not being afraid to experiment when figuring out how to move people up your engagement ladder, and that everyone's farm and everyone's business and experience is so different that it's all right. And it probably will take time to figure out what works for you and what works for your target audience. So for example, with my flowers, maybe telling people that if they sign up for our email list, they'll get our top 5 favorite recipes or vegetable recipes. Like maybe that wouldn't be the best fit and that won't get my ideal customer or whatnot to join the email list, but maybe instead doing a PDF about keeping your flowers fresh, that might be a better fit for that specific part of my business. But for you, it's all right to experiment. Obviously, even speaking for myself, like having a diversified business means that you might have a range of customers. So you can have multiple different ideas for how to get people to join your email list as well. So that's possible too. And the other part of this is with experimenting, unfortunately, and hopefully it's worth it. Moving people up your engagement ladder takes time and it takes energy. It's not instant. And there are definitely different methods to do so. The discount codes, the lead magnets I'm referring to, which would be like sending people a PDF of your recipes, creating, for example, maybe in the spring you want to do a virtual tour of your farm and you ask people have to enter their email to be a part of that, or it only gets sent out to the newsletter. There's different ways to do it, but I think it takes a lot of trial and error to get there. So the other thing I wanted to share in my final tip is focusing on quality over quantity. I think when you're thinking about moving people up your engagement ladder, you don't need to think about moving 100 people from Facebook likers to your email list all at once, because you'll probably set yourself up for something that isn't possible. Unless you know some tips and tricks that I have no idea about, but generally you need to focus on that quality. And also remember that in any type of business, every potential customer has a lot of value, and it might differ a little bit depending on what your business model looks like. But if you imagine every person as a potential CSA customer and you run, let's say, a spring, summer, and fall vegetable CSA here in Iowa, you know that customer has, $500+ worth of value beyond just their intrinsic value as a human. But for your business, they might have more than $500 of value. And so it's worth your marketing time to engage with that one specific person and help them move up the engagement ladder. If you have an example of this might be, if you have someone that comments on your Facebook posts, or they always reply to your Instagram stories, and you know they're local because they're engaging with you constantly about this or that, it's great. And going back to don't be afraid to ask, it's totally appropriate and great to say, I can tell that you really enjoy our content, or we really enjoy chatting with you. Would you be interested in joining our email list where we share a bi-weekly newsletter that has more up-to-date information on the farm. And we'd love to have you be part of that community. So it's okay to try to reach out to some of those specific people as well. So now I'd love to open it up to Q&A if anyone has any questions. And if not, I think we'll wrap things up.
I actually do have one quick question. So yeah. I think it's really hard on Instagram to share links because I think it's still like this, that only verified accounts can do the swipe up. And so how do you direct folks to your newsletter without it seeming like a chore? Do you put a link in your bio? Do you use Linktree so you can link to multiple things so you're not constantly having to change your bio? How do you handle directing folks on Instagram specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will say that I know this is something that Instagram, as always, they kind of roll things out slowly, but they have changed it. So now anyone can share a link on their story. So now you're able to link, which is good. And so you can do that directly in your story, but something that I do, and I've obviously copied from other people, is that they put a question box in their story and that they ask people to drop their email in the question box if they'd like to get added to the newsletter. So that's one Instagram specific way to do things. And I would say that my experience is I do use a Linktree, but I don't have one that specifically links to my newsletter, although if that could be a really good thing to do. I just have the newsletter page on my website. And so it goes directly there.
Thank you. And thanks for telling me about that. You can now link. That's very helpful.
Yeah, it might not be on your own Instagram yet, but yeah, I know it's slowly rolling out. I just got the feature and I think hopefully soon everyone will have it. You can't swipe up, but you can put the link there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that is my only question.
That's totally fine.
So yeah, we can go ahead and wrap up if that works for you.
Totally
Thanks for everybody for finding this video. So sorry for the Zoom issues that we had at the beginning and the middle, but hang in there. Thanks for hanging in there, and hope you learned a lot. I definitely did.
Yeah, have a good day, everyone. Oops.
Bye.